Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, John Wachter. Let's get you informed. On today's show, we're going to be talking about my top five wide receivers with honorable mentions at the end, just a kind of a best of the rest category. There's just so much talent. At one point, I actually wanted to change this to a top 10 receivers, but then that was going to be too long, and there were still going to be people left out. Then I was going to want to do a top 15, and by the end of it, I was just going to rate every receiver in the entire NFL, and that's not something anybody wants to listen to. So this list, my personal list, is going to be based off of a combination of statistical analysis and also what I've personally seen them do on the field, some of the intangibles and things of that nature. It's going to be a combination of things they've done in the past, the present, and my projection is for their near future and their distant future as well, focusing more so on the present and the future for this list. So let's dive right into it. My number five wide receiver is Dez Bryant. Unfortunately, he was injured pretty much all year since Game 1. Came back 2 weeks ago and got completely shut down by Richard Sherman. Maybe wasn't completely healthy. Maybe Sherman just had a great game. He's, of course, one of the top cornerbacks in the league. He only had 60 yards coming into Week 9, but finally had a good, healthy game. Everybody can remember that jump ball he had over three defenders in the end zone on a strange Hail Mary type play from 21 yards out. He probably got away with it pushed off, but that's not what I'm going to analyze here. It's just that play is just a microcosm of the physicality the guy brings to the table. He just has everything that you want. He's got the size to win jump balls. He's got the frame, the strength to break tackles, and the speed to find the end zone. He's got a gunslinger in Tony Romo throwing in the ball. When he gets back, of course, Romo's out now, and that's of course going to hurt Bryant, but Romo should be back, I believe, week 11 or 12, but definitely before the end of the season. He's had over 900 yards in all 4 years since his rookie season, and 9 touchdowns in every year as well. That's pretty insane. He led the league last year with 16 touchdowns. One per game. That's an absolutely amazing feat to pull off. The loss of DeMarco Murray is hurting him though. He's come off of his best year, and that's arguably because it wasn't such a one-dimensional offense. They had DeMarco Murray could break it out at any given time. Now they have Darren McFadden in now, and he's a great. He's been doing very great. They have a fantastic offensive line. Of course, Dez has missed a lot of time, so he's not going to meet up with the statistics he put up last year. But he's still, in my opinion, the most physically gifted wide receiver in the league, and that's why he finds a place on this list. Some people have questioned his character, but I feel as though all that has been overstated. Anything that was talked about him, most of those charges and things of that nature have never been proved. And I think he's just a guy that plays with a lot of passion. And unfortunately, the negative attention is kind of just anything he does can be perceived in a negative fashion now. And that's unfair to him. But he, as a player, definitely a top 5 on my list. You can question his character, but you can't question his output. Moving on, let's just go next on to my number 4 is Odell Beckham Jr. He, in my opinion, the LeBron James of the NFL. Not necessarily because he's like arguably the greatest player in the league or anything like that. Obviously, I only have him listed as my number 4. But in the way that the media just covers this guy, it's frustrating to watch. Everything he does is news. You'll see. I mean, I've seen plays where they make a highlight reel out of things that he almost has caught. I'll watch a clip and it'll be him dropping what would have been a great catch, but I don't need to see him dropping every pass. Like I mean, he's not a guy who drops a lot of passes, but I don't need to see everything that he's been involved in. This guy, even everything he does outside of football, they report. You can turn on ESPN and they'll be like, Odell Beckham Jr. eats Raisin Bran for breakfast this morning, and then they'll have a whole analysis on whether or not he needs to improve his fiber and things of that nature, if that's going to affect him. That's not something I need to see. Other than that, the guy is a great talent. His rookie year was no fluke. Guy has just insane speed and quickness, two very different things. Speed, when I say speed, I mean straight line speed. He's got the quickness to make these cuts and just makes defenders look stupid when he's on these routes and after he has the ball in his hand. So far this year, it has been a bit of a step back as far as his yards per game and his yards per catch, touchdowns per game. Still on pace for a great year. It'd be very difficult for him to have a similar year to what he had last year. Main thing for him this year is he needs more consistency. He's got 5 games under 80 yards this year, 3 of them under 50, which sounds bad, but you mix that in with 4 games of over 100 yards. And in a lot of those games, it's just that in my opinion, he just needs to play more physically. He's a speed guy. He's not going to run people over, but he shies away from contact from what I've seen. He looks scared of contact. All three of his games under 50 yards, he took a big hit early and just kind of got shut down the whole rest of the game. I'm not going to say he alligator armed it or anything like that. Nothing, really crazy like that. But maybe, and maybe I'm just overstating it as well. But I, as well as a couple of my friends have seen in games where he takes hits, he does not like being hit, and that's not something that you should have when you're playing a contact sport. That said, everyone knows about how great his hands are, and this guy can come down with some crazy catches, but the fact of the matter is he's even more dangerous after the catch. Teams are afraid to tackle this guy just as much as he's afraid to get hit. I've seen teams just surround the guy and bottle him up because, one guy's not going to tackle him. If he makes one guy miss, he's one of the fastest players on the field. He's got a good experienced quarterback with Eli Manning, and, if Victor Cruz ever comes back, if Victor Cruz ever comes back, Odell Beckham can be even more dominant. And that's where I'll end for him. Let's move on to number 3. DeAndre Hopkins is actually my number 3, which is going to be controversial. He's going to be the most controversial on this list. But I think he took an absolutely huge step this year. I was worried about how he was going to play without Andre Johnson on the other side of him, but he's been absolutely fantastic in his third year. He's the entire offense, especially now that Arian Foster's out. It was more balanced between the two of them. Even then, that's not a lot of variety. But with Foster out, it's entirely on DeAndre Hopkins, and he's stepping up. Like I said, he's in his third year, but he came in very young. He's only 23 years old right now. That's a little bit younger than what you would expect a third-year guy. You would imagine him to be around 25. So he's got a lot of time to continue to develop. He's got a great set of hands. He's got a knack for making big plays, especially late in games when they need him to, or if they don't need him to, just to give a bit of a buzz. Completely consistent this year, unlike Beckham. That's why I've placed him ahead of him. He's had no games under 50 yards and 3 games above 145. 2 of them above 150, one of them at like 148 or so. So I kind of fabricated that a tiny bit just to make him sound a little bit better. Third in receiving yards per game for players with more than 4 starts. I had to add that part in. Alshon Jeffrey, of course, is leading the league in yards per game, but he's only played 3.5 or 4 games or whatever he's played. So that could definitely fall off. No, not to diminish what he's done, and I'll talk about him more in the best of the rest category. But yeah. So he's got a lot of the one knock on him, a lot of yards in garbage time when his team's not winning. They're 3-5 and they're second place in the South, but unfortunately that's probably where this team is going to go the rest of the year is South, especially without Arian Foster. A lot of garbage time catches, but I mean I know I have him on my fantasy team, and I'll be worried he's going to have a letdown of a game for me, and then he's putting up like 9 points in the fourth quarter just because teams are playing off and things of that nature. But the bad record. And also, that doesn't take anything away from him. He's still out there making the plays. He's still working hard out there. Bad record could actually help this guy out. He's probably in line for a big contract. He's had 3 solid years now, and I mean they're going to want to build around him, and they're probably going to have an early pick in next year's draft. And I feel like it would be a great idea. And I don't follow college as strongly as a guy like Mike Mack or anything like that, but I do follow, and I think that it would be great for them to use their early pick on a quarterback this year. Lynch, Goff could be available. My favorite for this team is Connor Cook. I think he'd be a great fit for the team, and I think Hopkins could only be better with an NFL caliber quarterback on his team. Right now, they're bouncing back and forth on quarterbacks, and he hasn't had anybody. And of course, on the other side of him in the future is going to be Jalen Strong, who's still developing. He's just a rookie. It's hard to transition into the NFL at any position. So they'll just continue to get better. They're going to build around this guy, and they're going to get some help for him, and he's just going to continue to get better. Moving on to a guy who's already probably at his prime right now is Antonio Brown is my number 2 wide receiver on this list. The top 2 for me for this list was very obvious, but ordering them was not. So Antonio Brown is, of course, second place in receiving yards, only behind Julio Jones, and he is the leader in plays over 40 yards. Second behind Allen Robinson in plays over 20. So he's a big play guy, as well as apparently Allen Robinson, who not a lot of guys are talking about. He's one of them young and upcoming kind of guys on a team that's not in the media too much. But Antonio Brown's coming off of a huge day on Sunday. Setting franchise record, 17 receptions, 284 receiving yards. He also rushed for 22 to get over 300. So that's just absolutely insane. And he's coming off a career year last year where he led the league in receiving yards. One knock for him is that he plays a lot better with Ben Roethlisberger. Of course, when you have not as much talent at quarterback, like Roethlisberger's backups, you're not going to play as well. But he's averaging 153 yards per game, which would be the best in the league with him in, compared to only a 58.75 without him. Fortunately, though, he does play better with Landry Jones in than Vic, and it appears that they're going to go with Landry Jones in the future. With Landry Jones in, he's got 124 yards per game compared to only 27 with Vic. So I don't know if it's because Vic was just left-handed or if he didn't have a grasp for the offense or maybe a trust issue or something. But when Michael Vick was in, it really just was bad for Antonio Brown. It's going to, mess up his stats at the end of the year, and they got a few losses, maybe because of it, maybe not, even if Ben was in there. But it was definitely unfortunate. Roethlisberger's gone down twice over. He's one of the better quarterbacks in the league. I have Antonio Brown ranked lower than Julio Jones, and surprise, Julio Jones is my number one. One of the reasons is because Antonio Brown has a better, slightly worse stats, and also a better supporting cast around him, and because of how different he's just played without Ben Roethlisberger, who's still out right now. Ben's a tough guy, and he's going to miss a few games here and there, but he's going to try to play injured, things of that nature. He's going to miss a couple weeks, and by the time he gets back, Antonio Brown's going to go back to being, the great receiver that he is, and maybe he doesn't struggle as much this time around without him. Like I said, Landry Jones is getting the start, but Antonio Brown's got Martavis Bryant on the other side of him. When healthy, he's got Le'Veon Bell. He's got more weapons than Julio Jones does, and Julio Jones is still putting up, even just slightly better numbers. With that being said, so let's move on. Obviously, my number one is Julio Jones. No surprise there. Leads the league in catches and yards per game, so pretty dominant. Yards per game of people with more than 4 starts. Like I said about Alshon Jeffrey earlier, plays with absolutely no help on the other side. He's got Leonard Hankerson starting on the other side of him. Roddy White's still on the team, but he's aged a lot. Roddy White was actually complaining about not getting the ball enough this year, and it just seems clear that the team's moving away from that. And hopefully getting Julio some more help so he can put up even better numbers. Like, this guy is just killing it even with no help on the other side. He actually has more yards, receptions, and touchdowns than all the other wide receivers on his team combined. Would have more than everybody on his team combined. But Devontae Freeman is actually carrying a lot of the load in the receiving game as well. He's extremely consistent. Only had less than 90 yards twice all year. Less than 90 yards 2 times all year. He has had over 950 yards and 6 TDs in every year except for 2013, where he suffered from that injury. Only played about 5 games, I believe. Right now, he's on pace for 1,829 yards, which would be third place behind Calvin Johnson and Jerry Rice. More on Calvin Johnson soon. He can make all the tough catches as well as doing really all the basic things exceptionally well. He's a guy, big play guy, just like Antonio Brown, but in a different way. This is a guy who can make the one-handed grabs on the field, the catches in traffic, but he can also go and run a curl route for you and get 9 yards and get out of bounds and things of that nature. Just every single play, he's there. He is most of their. I mean, he's their entire pass offense right now. He's part of a key trio, a good youthful quarterback in Matt Ryan. Probably top 10. Some people would argue top 5. That's not, in my opinion, that's not where he is. But he's a good quarterback, and they have a dangerous runner, Devontae Freeman, having a breakout year. Can't state that enough. He already signed to a big contract and is locked up long term. Just got the new contract this year. A lot of guys, after they get the contract, just don't perform as well for whatever reason. Some people can say it's a work ethic type thing. It might just be an age thing. Of course, he's not old or anything like that, but he's just going to continue to get better right now with the potential for help in his future. They go out there and give him some more weapons, either through free agency or the draft, another wide receiver, some better tight end help, or things of that nature. He's just going to keep getting better. And one thing that stood out to me was he recently had a comment admiring Jerry Rice's work ethic and how he was trying to go in there and work as hard as he can every day, just like Jerry Rice did. Rice, of course, was one of the hardest working probably ever, even when he was the top guy. And it was just, I mean, at this point, I think it's hard to diminish Jerry Rice as anything except for the top guy. But he came and he worked hard every single day, and that's how you stay good. If you're the best and you stop trying hard, the next guy is going to be trying hard to overcome you, and he's going to overcome you if you're not improving as a person. So Julio Jones' worth ethic is going to keep him in this spot for a good while, I think. Who knows what the future has? With that said, real quick, I'm going to do a best of the rest segment, just kind of go over everybody. Top five, the list was so tough, just so many guys. Two future Hall of Famers that didn't make the list. Calvin Johnson, I just mentioned, one of the best of all time, NFL record for yards in a season. Over Jerry Rice, which is just insane to have any record over Jerry Rice. He's a short Hall of Famer, but Matthew Stafford is struggling right now. His future with the team extremely doubtful from numerous reports, and the offense could be in a transition period for the next few years. He's on the wrong side of 30, and he's been banged up a lot. He gets thrown to a lot, and he gets hit a lot. He's still on pace for over 1,000 yards, and he probably will hit that many more times before his career is over. And it's crazy to think that that's a down year for a guy, but that just kind of speaks to how great of a wide receiver he is. That said, I think he's on the downfall. Unfortunately, it just happens. Another guy similar, Larry Fitzgerald, another Hall of Famer, actually experiencing his best season since 2011. He finally has a good quarterback throwing it to him. Carson Palmer's having a great year. It'd be awesome to see how he would have been in his career with with some better quarterbacks. He's been working with guys like Kevin Kolb and John Skelton and Matt Leinart and other people I can't think of. I mean, he had Kurt Warner for a season, but that was near the end of his career. Probably one of the greatest sets of hands of all time. Deserves so much more in his career. Just such great stats. His age though, he's gonna have to be going downhill soon. He's one of the nicest guys in the league as well. He's just a great story as Larry Fitzgerald. It would be crazy to see where his numbers are. He's still a Hall of Famer, and he's still one of the best of all time. Just unfortunately didn't make my list. Two guys that missed it pretty much because of injuries right now. Jordy Nelson, high hopes, over 1,250 yards in each of his last 3 healthy seasons, and has hit double digits 2 times in that time span. Of course, he's on the other side of 30 as well, I believe, if not close to it. And a torn ACL is really hard to come back from for anybody. It's easy when in professional sports to expect a guy to come back because that's what you see all the time. But that's one of the most devastating injuries that especially an athlete can go through. It's definitely not a given. Another guy, Alshon Jeffrey, definitely would expect to see this guy on the list next year, but he's been dealing with injuries pretty much his whole career. Over 1,000 yards every year when healthy, averaging, he's the top guy in the league this year in yards per game, but he only played 4 games. And, he's only going to get better next year when Kevin White comes back. Hopefully he's healthy, and Forte could be back, depending on, what they want to do in the future. He's just a big-bodied guy, big play guy. Even in his rookie year, he already had a whole highlight reel. The guy just makes plays happen, and if he could stay healthy more consistently, I think he would have easily been on this list, but unfortunately that just has not been the case through his career, and I hope for the best for him because he's very entertaining to watch. Another guy not on the list, having a great year, is Brandon Marshall. Just having a lot of fumbles this year, and he's averaging 91 yards a game, I believe, and he has 6 touchdowns already. One of the most physical receivers, and he's got Eric Decker on the other side of him. Could probably benefit from a better quarterback, but he's on a team that's fighting for a playoff spot, and he's a big reason why. So shout out to him. Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders both having great years once again, but Peyton Manning's career is likely over very soon, and Denver appears to be shifting to a defensive team. So their futures are very much in doubt. Denver also is looking like they're shifting potentially to a running offense. Even though they haven't had great success this year, I think next year, as their line begins to develop more chemistry, or maybe they go out and get new guys, they have 2 potentially great running backs in C.J. Anderson and Ronnie Hillman. That they just... It's been frustrating to watch them, but they both have all the potential in the world, and I feel like that's where the team is going. Still, Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders, 2 of the best playmaking wide receivers in the NFL, definitely deserve a spot, but unfortunately there's only 5 spots. And speaking of only having 5 spots, AJ Green is just simply phenomenal. He's the guy that I was going to put up there. It was between him and Des Bryant. I didn't want to make a top 6 list. Pretty much everything I said about Des Bryant's true for AJ Green. He is, had plays that won games for the Bengals, just straight up, just him making the play. And Andy Dalton is having a breakout season. He's finally playing like they're expecting him to. I'll be the first to say I make a lot of Andy Dalton jokes, especially when he got his big contract. I didn't think he deserved it, but he's having a great year. And AJ Green definitely benefiting from it. He's the best player on an undefeated team. But like I said, there's only I just feel like Des Bryant's a better athlete overall, and there's only 5 spots on the list, unfortunately. And if I made a top 6, it would be AJ Green, but a top 6 just sounds dumb. So thank you for listening. Once again, my top 5, because I know that last segment got a little lengthy. Des Bryant number 5, Odell Beckham Jr. at 4, DeAndre Hopkins at 3, Antonio Brown at 2, and Julio Jones at 1. Once again, thank you for listening, and I hope to see everybody again. Thank you so much, and have a great day.